And up next, Alex Jones joins us for a couple hours right here on Coast to Coast AM. Stand by. Well, if you're a regular listener of Coast to Coast AM, you know Alex Jones, award-winning documentary filmmaker, political researcher, talk show host. His websites, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, and they are at the forefront of the exploding alternative media, rapidly becoming the media. Here's Alex Jones back 2 hours tonight on Coast to Coast AM. Alex, how are you?
George, it's great to be here. And let me tell you, it's always riveting listening, but the last 2 hours were particularly powerful. I think that's one of the best interviews I've ever heard Jesse Ventura do. And I'm glad you can get him for 2 hours. The most I've ever gotten him for is an hour and a half.
But he did say hello to you and thanks you for the cigars.
Well, you know, he's the wicked devil that introduced me to these particular Dominican Republic cigars. He just gave me a few of them on a trip once. And so I repaid the favor by sending him a whole box. And he said, "Now listen, my wife thinks that was staged, Alex. She thinks that I told you to send those to me because I'm supposedly supposed to not be quitting these, so don't send any more. But if some more come, I won't mind it."
He admitted that like myself, I didn't really get into the conspiracies and the questioning of governmental movement until much later into this coast-to-coast arena, Alex, after I started listening to you. And he's admitted basically the same thing, that, he was never leaning that way. Regardless of the Kennedy assassination, which truly was the conspiracy, he said that he picked up on this really late in life as well.
Well, that is what happened. And the first time I met Jesse Ventura was in 2005. He was down here in Texas at an event, and a local producer for a radio station said, "Hey, we're having this event. Do you want to come to a video interview / radio interview with him, taped on the side?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely." And so after the event that he was at, the book signing, we went, back in one of the offices, and I did like a 45-minute interview with him. And he said, "Well, I've seen Loose Change, and I've actually now seen a couple of your documentaries that my son gave me, Tyrell, but I'm still not 100% convinced." But he goes, I've bought about 20 books on 9/11 from different perspectives. And he said, when I go back down to Mexico for 6 months, I'm going to read them all. And that's basically all he does is that and exercise and things when he's down there. And then when he came back, then I basically was setting up a radio interview with him. And he said, "I'm almost ready to go public on 9/11 Truth." And then it wasn't until about a year later that I was getting him on my own show one day. And right before we went live, I said, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" And he says, "Alex, I'm ready to go public. They blew up the towers in Building 7. And so off the races.
He changed. Hey, what's the hot topic for you these days on your radio show?
Oh, man, there are a lot of the same important issues, George, that you cover. But, I've really got a list of them here when I knew I was coming on the show to basically talk about suppressed topics or topics that the establishment is trying to cover up, or topics where the social engineers are basically demonizing people that research them and question things that are happening. One of them is Al-Qaeda, CIA, Pentagon links to Libyan rebels and how that ties into the number one commander under bin Laden, Anwar al-Awlaki, hanging out secretly at the Pentagon. Also, with all this radiation news, it turns out, going back over 3 weeks ago, you and I were both right. They now admit that the Fukushima situation was a cover-up and is now as bad as Chernobyl. Many experts are saying 4 to 10 times worse.
Yep.
So I want to get into some of that. But since we're talking about Ventura here, segueing, he got some into it, but I was a consultant on the show and also appeared in 3 episodes per season of the 8. So I've been in 7. But really, of all the episodes I've consulted on or been a part of, the episode that had my biggest footprint in it was the police state FEMA camp special. I consulted heavily. I did a lot of the research. It was Texas, where Jesse traveled with myself to one of the FEMA centers. I also traveled with him to Georgia. And so if you want the inside scoop on that censorship, Jesse, doesn't really like to go all the way into it because he's involved with True TV, but I have basically got the full scoop if you want it.
Yeah, we will get into that. Also, my daughter told me yesterday, have you heard this? She said that there are apps out there now for these phones that if you know someone's cell phone number, you can find out where they are via GPS, and you can also tap into their phone and read all their text messages, download their photos. I've never heard of this before. I told her, go get me the information. I'll check on it. Have you?
Yes, it's called phone hacking. Basically because the government under the 1996 Telecommunications Act stated that industry had basically 5.5 years under federal law for all FCC-approved cell phones, smartphones that came out later, that they have GPS triangulation in them. They're not GPS tracked themselves, but they triangulate with GPS through the cell towers that are GPS markers, and that the government be able to tap in even when the phone is off and listen to you. And so because under federal law, under the Telecommunications Act, they all have back doors for warrantless wiretapping built into them, the hackers now know how to get into those, and it is an epidemic of problems. A lot of people who have iPhones or Droids probably notice, at least with my phone every day it happens, just while I'm surfing the internet, it'll pop up and say Google wants to be able to mark your location and then basically track you in GPS. And then if you want to allow your friends and family into that, then they can track you. But the issue is it's very, very easy to hack cell phones. In fact, a brief Charlie Sheen story, about a month ago, it came out in the news that his phone number had been released on the web by a big gossip.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Yes. And within an hour of that happening, I called his phone to warn him, knowing that he might not have been aware of it, and the phone had been taken over by a Florida talk show host, and there was an announcement by him saying, if you want we've hacked your phone, if you want your phone back, give me a call. And I just called Charlie at home on his home number, and I said, listen, have you noticed your phone's going crazy? He goes, yeah, it's ringing so hard, it doesn't stop. What happened? And I said, well, you can just put your name into a search engine, and, it says Charlie Sheen's phone hacked, or Charlie Sheen's phone number given out. And I said, God. Now it's been hacked. You've got to basically wipe the phone. You're going to have to get a new phone number. So this phone hacking issue, once his number was public for an hour, and I found out about it an hour into it, so I'm not sure exactly when they hacked it, but within 1 hour of his number being public and put out on the web, it was taken over. So that's 100% true. Wow,
that's scary, Alec. That's scary.
Well, Big Brother builds these back doors so Big Brother can get in. It's come out in a different security company analysis of Windows. People keep asking, why does Windows crash so much? Why does Windows have so many problems? Well, it's because Windows and every other major software system basically have government back doors built into them. That's why you'll see stories about a few years ago, a company in Canada started a satellite phone company and was selling them like hotcakes by the tens of thousands, and then they wouldn't give the U.S. government the code key to tap them. And so basically the U.S. government, if you pull up the news article, put pressure on the Canadian government to make them give them the back door. So basically the government opens back doors to everything. The government forces children to have Social Security numbers when they're younger. And so now children are 51 times more likely to have their identity stolen than adults. The government, makes you use all these IDs and numbers, and then basically sets up systems where it's allowed to be stolen. And then their answer is, give us more surveillance, give us biometric IDs to secure the old systems that they forced to be standardized.
All right, so we had Jesse on, and we talked a little bit about the FEMA camps, and you've got some more in-depth news for us. Let's start with that, Alex, if we can. So he had one episode that he said ran, and then anything else they never ran after that. Is that true? That was true, but explain why that happened.
Okay, and it's funny that this came up with Jesse tonight while I was listening in the last hour, because actually I wrote a list of things that I thought were important to cover tonight, because you're always kind enough to let me cover some of the subjects that I want to get into, and then you ask your probing questions. But the issue of media censorship, the internet kill switch, the EAS alert system that doesn't just take over radio and TV transmissions with black boxes and old broadcast systems, The internet kill switch is basically a EAS takeover system of not just radio, TV, not just your smartphones, but Facebook, MySpace, Twitter. All of these systems are having government takeover hubs put in. And if you saw the article in the AP just last Friday, it was Homeland Security to use Facebook and Twitter for alerts. But then if you read what Federal News Radio put out with an interview with Homeland Security about 2 months ago, they have announced. Now, a lot of times they announce something, and if it doesn't go over well, they don't implement it. Kind of like Governor Ridge said 8 years ago on C-SPAN when he was head of Homeland Security. He said, we're going to have TSA on the streets of America, and it took many years until those actual checkpoints started, not just at the airports. But I'm kind of getting there in a roundabout way. The point is the entire media is under attack. The entire free web is under attack. The entire system of talk radio, not just with the push to bring back the fairness doctrine and restrict our free speech, but Senator Jay Rockefeller with quotes like, we'd be better off if the internet was never invented. That's some of the subjects later in the hour I want to get into, because now they're announcing that that Homeland Security and the federal government, including President Obama, are going to start breaking in with alerts on your Facebook account, on your Twitter, on your cell phone, and you won't be able to switch it off. And Homeland Security admits they want to migrate to a point where a video pops up on your smartphone or your computer, and you don't have a choice. Their first trial balloon was about a decade ago when they said, we want to force chips into all clock radios, where if a tornado's coming or something, we can turn your radio on and give you alerts. Basically, one of the older systems is they have FEMA transmission shortwave towers in every region, and basically then it's hardwired for those systems. That's how the old EAS over radio worked, to break in and take over your device. Well, now with this high-tech system, under cybersecurity, under Homeland Security, they're wiring all of these grids into the hubs, the switchers, the infrastructure for a total full-spectrum dominance takeover of media. Now, that said, you have that move and the open announcements of the internet kill switch that is basically already in place. They're now just announcing it to us, the slaves, because they know they're engineering this financial collapse and all these new wars, and that we're finding out about them. So for decades ahead of this rise of world government, they've been building this suppression infrastructure. But it's not enough to just have the media shutdown switch during any civil emergency martial law scenario like we saw in Egypt. The first thing Mubarak did when he started cracking down a few months ago, before he got defeated, was go around and arrest all the major media, all the major political activists,